You were once that man, the one fire couldn't scorch, and no woman could tame. You didn't follow trends or seek approval. You bent reality with the force of your will. You looked at the world, and especially women, not with longing or hesitation, but with the cold, unshakable fire of a man who belonged to no one. You were the storm walking through calm villages, the danger they whispered about, the man who didn't just enter a room, he shifted the air in it, not out of arrogance, but because there was no altar you bowed to, no crown above your own mind. Your will was law, your silence was final, your presence unbending. But now look at you. You smile when she enters, not out of joy but out of fear. You laugh when you're uncomfortable. You tiptoe in your own home. You obey, not from love, but from self-preservation. You measure every word. You walk on eggshells like a servant in a palace that once belonged to you. You no longer live. You seek permission to exist. You negotiate your boundaries like a man asking for scraps. You water down your opinions, your instincts, your truths, all to avoid her disapproval. And the most terrifying part? You call it love. What the hell happened to you? Max Stirner would laugh, not out of mockery, but recognition. Because he warned you, long before your first kiss, that your greatest enemy wouldn't be the tyrant with a crown or the priest with a robe, but the ideas in your head that you turned into gods. Stirner wrote, "The human being is to me only something that exists like myself, but not a higher power. And yet you made her a higher power. You turned her approval into scripture, her emotions into commandments, her comfort into your gospel. And in doing so, you forgot the most sacred truth of all. Your ego is your only property. You were supposed to be the man who lived for himself, the unique one. Not in some narcissistic, shallow sense, but in the deep, raw realization that you are not born to serve an ideal, a tradition, or a woman. You are born to serve no one. But here you are, sacrificing time, energy, dreams, even your identity, just to keep her happy. And she doesn't even respect you for it. Because deep down, even she craves the man you used to be, the one she could never control. Stirner called them spooks, ghosts in the mind. You were haunted, not by her, but by the idea of her. The idea that a good man must always please, that love is proved by surrender, that compromise is maturity. You thought if you gave more, she'd love you harder. But she didn't. Because what you gave wasn't strength. It was submission in disguise. You thought you were negotiating peace. But what you were doing was laying down your weapons and building her a throne. And don't you dare say it was for the kids, or for peace, or because she had more needs than you. Number, you surrendered because you were scared. Scared of being alone. Scared of being the villain. Scared of being called toxic. So you traded your truth for her comfort. You handed over your fire for the illusion of harmony. And that's the most cowardly thing a man can do. To betray himself and then call it love. This is not a hate piece against women. Stirner didn't hate women. He simply didn't worship them. And that's the point. A free man doesn't hate or idolize. He uses. He chooses. He remains himself in every room, every relationship, every kiss. He doesn't give up his sovereignty for sex, peace, or validation. Stirner wrote, "I am the owner of my might, and I am so when I know myself as unique." Do you know yourself anymore? Do you even remember the taste of your own will? The rhythm of your own thoughts, unfiltered by her expectations? She didn't steal your power. You gave it, bit by bit, smile by smile, apology by apology. And now, you sit quietly on the couch, watching her scroll through her phone, while you wonder why you feel invisible in your own home. You used to be the man women feared to lose. Now you're the man she keeps around because you're useful. You see, the tragedy isn't that she left. The tragedy is that she didn't have to, because the man she met, the one who once burned with purpose, certainty, and self, he left long before she did. He vanished the moment you started measuring your words. He died the day you paused your ambition to soothe her insecurities. He withered the second you prioritized peace over truth. You called it maturity, growth, partnership, but Stirner would call it what it is, sacrifice to a ghost, a fiction of obligation, a surrender to something that does not exist. She didn't break you. You broke yourself for her. You thought that bending would make you loved, but no woman admires a man who bends until he disappears. You hoped she'd reward your silence, your patience, your blind loyalty. Instead, she saw it for what it was: weakness disguised as virtue. You became a good man, a harmless man, a predictable man, but never again a dangerous man. Never again her man. Stirner said, "All things are nothing to me." Not because he was nihilistic, but because he understood that nothing, no institution, no belief, no woman, has inherent power over the self unless you allow it. But you gave it. You gave her the authority to define what you are. You allowed her feelings to become your compass. You let her tears rewrite your principles. And now, when you disagree, it's not an argument. It's an apology waiting to happen. You used to live for your passions. You built, conquered, moved with purpose. Now you tiptoe. Now you ask before you breathe. What happened to you, brother? You were not born for this. Stirner didn't write for slaves. He wrote for the awakened, those brave enough to burn the invisible chains and walk naked with their own will as their only guide. She controls you now, not with force, but with the quiet tyranny of expectation, with her sighs, her glances, her, "Are you really going to wear that? And we need to talk." With her ability to manipulate the atmosphere in the room until you're forced to act like a clown to make her smile again. And you do it. You dance, you joke, you apologize for being tired, you apologize for not being the man she imagined in her Pinterest board of dreams. You've become a hostage to her emotional climate. And here's the cruel twist. She doesn't even want the control she has. She resents it. She resents you. Because she didn't fall for a man who seeks permission. She fell for a man who didn't care what she thought, because he was already whole. She admired your distance, your indifference, your refusal to kneel. That's what thrilled her. And when you dropped your sword, she didn't feel safe. She felt disgusted. Women don't want to lead. They want to feel your gravity. They don't want to explain what a man is. They want to be reminded. And every time you hand over your decision-making, your edge, your refusal to yield, you become more invisible, more disposable, more like the 100 other men she scrolls past on her phone, smiling, eager, dying to impress. Stirner's egoist wasn't cruel. He was simply unapologetically real. He didn't suppress his will for an idea of love. He didn't neuter his instincts to maintain peace. He said, "Man, your head is haunted. You have wheels in your head." You still do. You're haunted by the idea that to keep a woman, you must lose yourself. That to love her, you must worship her. That being needed is better than being respected. But listen carefully. A man who is needed but not respected is not loved. He is used. You were the man women couldn't control because you never needed them. You chose them. And that was your power. You didn't ask for love. You inspired it. But now you beg for it with silence, chores, and unspoken resentment. What a miserable trade. You think being agreeable is love? You think that letting her decide where to live, what to do, how to spend, and when to speak is the secret to harmony? That if you just keep making her happy, she'll finally stop testing you? Stirner would laugh in your face and hand you a mirror. "You have no self," he would say. "You are possessed by an illusion, a spook wearing lipstick and perfume. You thought you were strong because you never shouted. You thought strength was endurance. But strength is not quiet compliance. It's the power to say no and mean it. It's the ability to let her cry and not move, to let her leave and not beg, to stand like a god among insects, even when the bed is cold and her arms are crossed. You used to command the room by existing. Now you wait for her to tell you when it's okay to speak. She tested you, not because she wanted to dominate, but because she hoped you wouldn't fold. She craved resistance, not cruelty, not abuse, but presence. Will, certainty, the kind of power a man has when he is complete in himself. But instead of holding the line, you gave ground. And then you blamed her for walking all over you. Stirner's whole philosophy is a brutal assault against sacred lies. And the lie you worshipped most? That a good man sacrifices for his woman. No, A good man lives for himself, and she is free to walk beside him if she dares. Stirner didn't say to hate others. He simply declared ownership over his own existence. I am not nothing in the sense of emptiness, but I am the creative nothing. That is, I am not defined by anyone or anything. I define myself. But you gave her the pen. You let her rewrite you. You became a love poem full of edits, cross-outs, and soft, meaningless verses meant to flatter. That's why she doesn't read you anymore. There's nothing dangerous left on your pages. Do you even know what you want anymore? Or have you trained yourself so well to predict her moods that you forgot your own desires? Do you eat what she eats, dress how she wants, speak how she prefers, and call that unity? That's not a relationship. It's self-erasure. It's spiritual suicide. And still, you wonder why you feel anxious, why you feel small, why she flirts with men who look nothing like you, why her eyes dim when you enter the room. It's not because you've aged. It's not because you've gained weight. It's because you stopped being the man she couldn't predict, the man who made her nervous, the man who didn't apologize for being himself. You became the help, the planner, the dependable one. And in becoming her rock, you forgot that a rock doesn't chase, it doesn't bend, it doesn't whisper apologies. It simply is. That's the ego Stirner spoke of, the raw, undiluted core of the man who lives not to please but to be. She doesn't want your help. She wants your spine. She doesn't want a yes man. She wants a man whose no she can feel in her bones, whose silence is louder than her chaos, whose presence cannot be bribed by affection or manipulated by tears. You were that once, and you can be again. But not until you kill the ghost of who you've become, the ghost who's always agreeable, the ghost who thinks being chosen means being owned, the ghost who traded power for peace and ended up with neither. And now you sit, wondering why your fire died, why she rolls her eyes when you speak, why intimacy feels like negotiation, why you walk on eggshells in your own home. It's because you've forgotten how to offend, not maliciously, but unshakably. Stirner didn't whisper his truth. He screamed it through the bones of every man who dared to be free. He didn't say, respect others before yourself. He said, I'm only concerned about myself. That was not selfishness. It was sanity. You were supposed to be untamable, a force that couldn't be bribed by beauty or peace or the illusion of partnership. But instead of walking beside her, you shrank beneath her moods. Instead of leading, you asked, what do you think we should do? You handed over the wheel of your life because she smiled at you sweetly, touched your arm and said, you're such a good man. And you believed her, because you wanted to believe that being wanted meant being respected, but you forgot. To be respected, you must first be feared, not with fists, but with your presence. She cannot respect a man who fears her reaction more than he fears losing himself. Look at every moment you silenced your truth. Every moment you apologized for simply being a man. Every time you allowed her to shame your instincts, your desires, your strength. Look at the friendships you abandoned because she didn't like your friends. The hobbies you buried because they took time away from her. The goals you delayed because she needed emotional support. Tell me, was the trade worth it? You gave up your roar for a purr, and now you wonder why she treats you like a lapdog. Stirner's words echo again. No thing has value in and of itself. It has value only as it serves me. You used to live by this without knowing it. You chose what served your path. You dismissed what didn't. You didn't need her. That's why she wanted you. But now she stays because you're convenient, not captivating. The truth is brutal. She didn't change. You did. She didn't become controlling. You became controllable. And deep down, you know it. That's why you feel the ache, the quiet humiliation, the loss of edge. You were not built for a life of obedience. You were forged to rule yourself, to create, to build, to stand alone if need be. You were never meant to be a husband of compromise, but a sovereign of conviction. And now you hear whispers of that former self in your silence, in the way you stare out windows longer than necessary, in the way you get angry over small things, not because of the things themselves, but because they remind you of how far you've fallen. That man, the untamed, unapologetic, iron-souled man, is still in there, chained, starved, waiting. This is not a call to leave her. This is not a call to fight her. This is a call to resurrect yourself, to tear down the paper-thin identity you crafted to keep her happy, to burn the script you've been reading from for years, the one titled How to Be a Good Man, written by people who never knew what a man is, to reclaim your ego, not as arrogance, but as recognition, that you are not here to be loved. You are here to be you, and love is welcome, but never required. She may scream, she may cry, she may threaten to leave. Let her. If you remain solid, if you walk back into your own kingdom without fear, she will follow. And if she doesn't, she was never worthy of the man you are becoming. You want to know what hurts her more than your anger? Your absence? Not the physical kind, but the absence of the man she once admired. She misses the man who didn't ask if he could lead. He simply led. The man who didn't explain his decisions because his life was not up for debate. She may have complained about him, argued with him, even tried to soften him. But that man, the man who made her blood rush just by walking into a room, is the man she secretly prays returns. Stirner didn't say to hate women. He said to stop sacrificing for illusions. The state, religion, morality, and the woman, these are all spooks if they are allowed to possess your mind. And you, brother, have been possessed, not by her, but by the image of what you think she wants. You no longer act, you adjust, you no longer speak, you filter, you no longer lead, you negotiate, and every time you do, the ghost tightens its grip on your soul. The truth is, she didn't want a servant. She wanted a king, a man who makes decisions and lets her respond however she wants. A man who doesn't fold under pressure or rearrange himself like clay for every emotion she throws at him. You thought compromise was the answer, but all she ever wanted was a man who wouldn't flinch. Do you remember what it felt like to walk through the world without asking permission? To wake up and do what you wanted, say what you meant, and move how you pleased? That wasn't irresponsibility. That was sovereignty. That was you before you traded freedom for comfort, and now that comfort is your cage. She doesn't look at you the same anymore. You've seen it. You've felt it. The way her touch has changed, the way her eyes avoid yours, the way she lights up when a man with confidence walks past, one who hasn't yet surrendered his spine. And you hate that man not because he's wrong, but because he reminds you of the man you were supposed to be. You had one job, to remain you, not half of you, not the edited version, the full, raw, unfiltered egoist who bows to nothing, not even love. Because real love doesn't require kneeling. It demands standing tall. She may have asked you to soften, to listen more, to be more understanding. But the second you became what she said she wanted, you stopped being what she felt. Now listen to me, and listen hard. You are not too late. The chains are invisible, yes, but they are breakable. And the moment you stop asking what she needs and start asking who you are, you begin the return. Not to some macho fantasy, but to the truth. Your truth. Stirner's truth. That you are the center, not of the universe, but of your universe. When you reclaim that truth, everything shifts. You speak less, but it carries more weight. You listen, not to obey, but to understand. You touch, not to be touched back, but because you want to. You stop explaining yourself. You stop pleading. You stop apologizing for your nature. And suddenly, she feels it. The shift, the energy, the presence. The man who once made her nervous has returned. The man who doesn't argue to win, but states to declare. The man who doesn't need her to stay, but makes her terrified to lose him. That's the man women can't control. Not because he fights them, but because he's beyond their reach. You want her back? Not physically, spiritually. You want her desire, her respect, her silence in your presence. Then stop performing. Stop negotiating your masculinity like a man selling his soul in installments. Burn the script. Kill the ghost. Return to the altar of yourself and light a fire there. Stirner didn't plead with society for space. He took it. He didn't ask women for validation. He invalidated anything that demanded he shrink. I am my own only when I am master of myself. That's Stirner's final warning. The man who kneels at the altar of love loses both the woman and himself. The man who stands at the center of his own orbit, he may lose her body, but he will keep his soul. And with that, he will draw 1,000 others. Your soul has been bleeding under the weight of silent resentment. You've hated her not for who she is, but for who you became around her. You handed over your throne, and now you envy the very men who would never kneel in your place. It's time to end that cycle. You do not need to leave her to reclaim yourself, but you do need to risk losing her. Because if she stays when you rise, she's worth your time. But if she only loves the version of you that crawls, let her go. Stirner never asked men to become wolves. He asked them to stop pretending to be sheep. He didn't demand aggression. He demanded authenticity. And in the world of modern relationships, authenticity is the rarest form of power. Because most men are actors, pretending to be kind, pretending to be agreeable, pretending to be feminized just enough to be safe, and then they explode. They cheat, they run, they spiral, because you can only suffocate your truth for so long. So what now? Now you look in the mirror, not for weakness, not for guilt, but for fire. You speak truthfully. You reclaim your space. You say what you mean. You say no without shame. You lead without permission. And you let her respond however she wants. Because her reaction is not your responsibility. Only your authenticity is. You were never meant to be understood. You were meant to be felt. And when a woman feels the presence of a man who does not need her, who does not shrink for her, who does not flinch at the threat of loneliness, she either runs or surrenders. Both are victories. Because the man who cannot be controlled is not a threat. He is a mirror. He shows women what strength truly is. And deep down, every woman wants to be near that fire, even if it burns her. You want the final truth? Here it is. The world punishes weak men, not with violence, but with invisibility, not with rejection, but with slow emotional decay. And women, no matter what they say, never submit to the man who worships them. They submit, body, soul, and breath, to the man who worships nothing but his own freedom. That's the man you were. That's the man you will be again. And when you rise, not as a tyrant, not as a savior, but as a sovereign of your own soul, you'll realize something haunting. She was never the one in control. You were. You just forgot. And now, you remember. Like, share, subscribe, support the movement. Link is in the description. Stay tuned.